She chose death over the throne. Empress Zu's defiance that shattered an empire. They said the skies turned dark the day the empire fell, but I remember the silence more than the shadows. It wasn't the roar of invasion that marked the end of the world. It was the moment when all noise drained from the air, and even the birds forgot how to sing. That winter of 1127, I stopped hearing time. I was 25 years old, an empress not of glory, but of endings. My name was Ju Yan. You may know me as Empress Ju. A daughter of generals, student of poetry, mother of a prince, and consort to an emperor who could not save his own soul, much less a nation. I was raised in courts where the calligraphy of a well-turned phrase carried more power than a blade, and yet no scroll, no ink, no verse had ever prepared me for the sound of boots thundering down palace halls, not in honor, but conquest. I remember the soft hush of silk between my fingers as we worked through the nights, my maids and I, stitching clothes for soldiers we would never meet, threading needles with trembling hands, not from fear, but from urgency. We stitched as if our thread might hold the empire together, as if wool could stop steel. For a brief trembling heartbeat it worked. The cold was kept at bay. The men at the front, warmed by hands they would never see, pushed back the tide. And I let myself believe, just for a breath, that perhaps grace could still win wars. But grace means nothing to hunger, or to ambition, or to the quiet rot that had been eating at our throne long before the gene ever crossed our gates. The second siege came with no poetry, just panic. My husband, Emperor Qinzong, changed commands like he changed robes. Strategy became suggestion, suggestions became silence, and the empire cracked, not with a bang, but a sigh. They dragged us through the snow, royalty turned livestock. My son, barely 10, clung to my robes. He didn't cry, not because he wasn't afraid, but because he didn't yet understand what we'd lost. Titles meant nothing now. Not empress, not emperor, just woman, man, child. Prisoner. The world I had known collapsed not in war, but in mockery. They paraded us like trophies, not in palaces, but in towns where children pointed and laughed. They stripped us of names, of warmth, of meaning. The sheet parade, they called it. Skins around our shoulders, ropes around our throats. I had been draped in imperial robes, silks woven from the dreams of dynasties. Now I wore humiliation like a second skin. Still, I did not scream, not when they made me bathe in the open, not when they turned my body into spectacle. Silence was all I had left, and so I clung to it. When I tried to take my life, they stopped me. Not out of mercy, but control. I was to be preserved, like a rare artifact. Not revered, displayed, guarded, owned. But no cage is perfect. That night, the moon did not rise. It was dark enough for hope. The water was colder than I imagined, but it welcomed me. Not as prisoner, but as daughter, as woman, as soul. It cradled me with the tenderness of a mother I never knew, and in its depths I found silence again. I was 26. They say the Jin Emperor wept when he heard. Or perhaps he just respected the quiet rebellion of a woman who did not kneel. He gave me a title, Lady of Virtuous Chastity, a name to go with the story. But I had already named myself with the act. Even in death, they needed me to be useful. I had no army, no crown, no weapon but refusal. And yet, the emperors who once held the mandate of heaven were reduced to whispers and mockery. Huizong, the artist king, remembered not for beauty but for ruin. Qinzong, my husband, outlived me by decades, yet left nothing but questions and empty rooms. But I became legend. Not because I sought it, but because, when everything was taken, I chose what could not be taken: myself. In the shadow of dynasties, where records crumble and emperors fade, my name endures like a candle in a wind, dim, persistent. They taught my story in secret, in hushed tones, mothers to daughters, scholars in the margins of scrolls. A woman who died not for power, but for dignity, who vanished rather than be erased. Some say I was foolish, that I could have endured, waited, survived. But survival is not life when your soul is not your own. There are prisons worse than death, and some cages dress themselves in silk. No, I did not want martyrdom. I wanted to remain whole. In a world that taught women to vanish quietly, I vanished loudly. With no scream, no sword, only silence. And that silence thundered across time. They remembered me not for what I did, but what I did not allow. I did not allow them to write the ending. I wrote it myself. And now you carry that ink. Tell them I was here. Tell them I stood. Tell them I chose the cold over the cage. Tell them that even empires fall